Man, oh man, episode 47 of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. We are already here. Welcome in here on a Wednesday night, January 31st, 9:15 approximately p.m. Live from Houston, Texas. Episode 47 of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. We've got a loaded show today. It's January. We're 4 months away from the draft, but fuck it. We're getting into draft content. And then we're also going to get into a lot of college basketball discussion as we have a loaded slate of college basketball. And I've said that in the past, but this is actually a loaded slate of college basketball. Not what I've said in the past. So with all that being said, like and subscribe as it says on your screen and enjoy the ride. And if you have your opinions on who should draft who in the first round or the first 12 picks of the draft, make sure you leave your feelings or opinions in the chat. With all that being said, I welcome in my esteemed co-host and fellow Longhorn fan, Imy Nixon. What's up?
Nothing much, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited to get into this draft content. I'm a complete draft nerd. Like year round, I consume draft content. As crazy as that sounds, like I listen to a podcast that does summer scouting. Like I'm as big of a draft nerd as you're gonna find in terms of just a fan, like not getting paid to consume this mock draft content. But I'm excited for this. I'm super excited for this.
We're going to be draft nerds here for about the next 5 months. Through when the draft actually happens, and then until basically a couple weeks after the draft, because we have to kind of wrap up everything that happened in the offseason. And before we know it, we'll be back to real football games. So with all that being said, let me explain how this mock draft 1.0 is going to work. We're going to go probably 4 or 5 minutes per pick. We're going to alternate like we've done in previous years. This singular mock draft 1.0 will only be the first 12 picks. We will do longer mock drafts later on, but for the sake of tonight, this will only be the first 12 picks. So I apologize if your team is not getting discussed today. They will get discussed in an episode soon. I will be drafting the odds, so 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And Imy will be drafting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. And we will switch that up for other mock drafts. But just for tonight, that's the parameters. I'm drafting based on what I would do, not what I think the team is going to do. It's way too early to know what any of these teams are going to do. Maybe the first 2 picks, but outside of that, it's kind of early to.
Yeah, I don't even think the teams know what they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like there could be trades. We're not going to do trades tonight, but in a future mock, we will do trades. So just bear with us, and let's get this thing rolling. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Okay. So I had the first pick, and with the first pick in our mock draft 1.0 here on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports, the Chicago Bears are going to be selecting Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. here's what I think. The Bears have a big decision to make on whether or not they want to keep Justin Fields and maybe trade this pick to acquire more capital, or grab one of the top quarterbacks in this class and trade Fields away. Ultimately, I think it makes the most sense for them to reset their rookie quarterback contract clock and grab one of what I think one of the more physically talented passers in recent memory that we've seen come into the draft in Caleb Williams. Super high upside, was a star at Oklahoma, obviously won the Heisman at USC a year ago. He's got elite arm talent, natural playmaking ability. You know, he might need to develop more as like an on-time, in-rhythm passer at the next level, but his upside is way too large. I think there's a much better chance that he turns into a top 10, top 5 caliber level quarterback than there is that Justin Fields turns into that kind of guy, at least in Chicago at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that last point is really the bottom line of it. I think the argument that people like to throw out in defense of Justin Fields is, oh, but there's risk of drafting a unproven guy in the NFL like a Caleb Williams. Like there's so much risk there. Like what if he sucks? Yada yada yada. But there's risk to keeping Justin Fields as well. You have to take that into account. Like as much as Justin Fields is proven, and in terms of being a, I guess, superhuman level runner at the quarterback position, he still leaves a lot to be desired in terms of passing at the quarterback position. So I agree with your pick. I think that's going to be one of the main conversations we have in the offseason. So
right, and if you're the Bears and you just want to send Justin Fields Pittsburgh's way, I would be totally cool with that. Just say,
yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, number 2 overall pick. I'm going with Drake May.
I like it.
I think between these two quarterbacks, I think you have a lot of similarities, and I think Drake May has a high floor as a prospect. He already has a lot of the things you look for in terms of diagnosing coverages and polished accuracy and those types of things, getting the ball out on time. Those are the types of things you look for, playing in structure, executing the offense. And he also adds that playmaking ability that is so coveted in today's NFL. And I think with where this Washington team is, they already have weapons. You have a few questions at offensive line, of course, but I think now is probably the time to start the new era in Washington with the new coach, new ownership, obviously, and just get this next era started.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I've seen in most mocks is Drake May going to the Commanders. There's a chance they could be enticed by Jaden Daniels and his dual threat skill set here. But May's bigger. He has a stronger arm. He can do plenty of things as a scrambler and a runner himself. And, the former Tar Heel star gives this new ownership group and coaching staff a foundation to build upon. I like his size, 6'4", 229. I think that will be the pick unless they decide to go a different direction. Now, here with the Patriots, this is where the draft starts, in my opinion. You could go a couple different directions here. Will they be enticed to go with Jaden Daniels? Totally possible. Could they potentially go offensive line as they need help there? Also totally possible. You have Joe Alt on the board. You have Olu Fashanu, the tackle from Penn State. For me personally, though, I'm going to go with what I think the best player on the board is for the Patriots, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. For me, I go best player available, in my opinion. Look, he's got elite length, blazing speed, natural pass catching skills. I know you need the quarterback. I know you need to shore up offensive line, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the best wide receiver prospects that we've seen in years. Tall, slender frame, excellent length, twitchy movement ability, top tier ball skills, and he would give you that foundation on which to build this offense through. Like he would be the guy in this offense. So you could go a lot of different directions. You could go the Jaden Daniels route if you wanted to. You could also potentially go offensive line. I went Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I think the interesting part of the Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3 conversation, or even just in the top 5, is how much do you value the wide receiver position? Because that's been a point of contention in the NFL. It seems like more and more we're seeing wide receivers be extremely important on Super Bowl winning football teams. Um, you saw with the Rams, obviously Cooper Kupp. You saw, the Bengals draft Jamar Chase and then immediately have that jump. We've seen it over and over again, teams trading for a guy and then making a big jump offensively. So to me, it just depends on how you feel about Malik Neighbors, whether or not you go with Harrison at number 3. Because I think that gap there is, there's a gap there, but it's not as wide as some people would think, in my opinion. I'm very high on Malik Neighbors. So I think if the Patriots go with Harrison at 3, to me that means it's worth taking him there rather than trading down and possibly taking Neighbors and acquiring more assets. So it just depends on which of those 2 routes they would rather go in.
Yep.
Okay, so number 4 for the Arizona Cardinals. This is interesting. I think I'm tempted to go with Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean, I think he has versatility to play a multitude of different positions in the secondary, which is just so valuable. But like I said, I'm very high on Malik Neighbors, so I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna go with Malik Neighbors. It's a tough one, but I think him paired with Marquise Brown and those other weapons they have, I think Malik Neighbors will immediately step in and be their number 1 option for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I love Malik Neighbors. Typically, and also, it's not apples to apples, but these LSU receivers tend to be pretty good. And he's just a big play waiting to happen. Explosive, twitched up wide out, muscular frame, long arms, infinite upside, elite athleticism, field tilting speed. As they say, he's got that dog in him. He's one of those guys. And this year at LSU was ridiculous. I mean, he actually ended up with more yards than Marvin Harrison Jr. 89 catches for almost 1,600 yards and 14 touchdowns. He's an awesome player. And I don't think he falls below 6.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know if he goes above Harrison. He might. But I mean, if he's not at 3 to the Patriots, and if he's not at 4 to the Cardinals, he's definitely going 5 or 6 to the Chargers or the Giants. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I'm the Chargers, I'm praying Neighbors falls to me at 5, and if he doesn't, then I might even look to trade down. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say on them.
Well, for the sake of this exercise, I can't
Right.
trade
Yeah,
down.
of course. Yeah.
Might be interesting in a future mock draft, though, to have those discussions. For me right here, I'm really down to Brock Bowers, who I think you can make an argument is the best available football player on the board, or a tackle for the Chargers. Do you go Joe Alt to better that offensive line, or do you go Brock Bowers? For me, I'm kind of actually leaning Joe Alt here, the tackle. But to make things fun, I'm going to go Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers is like he's unlike a lot of tight ends that we've seen into the draft. He's just different. Um, Twitchy, versatile pass catching tight end, rare run after the catch talent. I think if a creative schemer can get his hands on this dude, he's going to be absolutely fun to watch. John Harbaugh's got to love this guy. Just being in college football the past couple of years and seeing Georgia play. I think, he's rugged, he's rough and tumble, muscular frame, explosive movement. People are going to have questions, I think, about the amount that he was banged up possibly in college, but I think he's too good to pass up on. It's at a position of need for the Chargers. They haven't been good enough at that position in years past. You could go offensive line, but I just view Brock Bowers as, I don't want to say a generational tight end, but he is something special.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Bowers, I don't even know who you would even compare him to. I mean, he's at that size. There's just no precedent for how quick and good on his feet he is. Like his route running ability, like he runs away from guys. Like you can put a DB on him, he's gonna still be quicker almost than some DBs you put on him. It's actually so ridiculous how good he is. Okay, number 6 for the Giants. I think this is a no-brainer. It's interesting in terms of would they possibly go with Jaden Daniels, but for me personally, I think the pick here is Joe Alt. If you look at just his development track from being a 3-star out of high school to now being consistently just a stud pass protector, and he mauls in the run game. I think he's the best tackle in this class, and I think he's as close to a can't miss in terms of the tackle position in this entire draft. I think his game is as close to flawless as it gets. You're not going to have any concerns with play strength or technique. He's already polished and all of those types of things. So to me, you take Joe Alt and then possibly move Evan Neal to guard, where he's really struggled at a tackle.
Yeah, Joe Alt is, skyscraping left tackle, combination of elite length, quick feet. He's tough to get around, smooth footwork. He is the best tackle in this class. I do agree with you. But for number 7, with Tennessee, their offensive line has just been the complete disaster. I was trying to think of a more dramatic word to describe it, but I couldn't think of it right off the top of my head. It's been bad, and they need offensive linemen badly. That's their biggest need. And I don't think it might be a little audacious to go you can't go receiver. There's plenty of receivers you can find later on. I like the Penn State guy, Fashanu, at this spot. That's what I'm going to do. He is I've watched a little bit of him. Agile, reliable blindside protector, excellent length, light feet. Penn State typically has good offensive lines. 6'6", about 310, 315. Pass blocks, run blocks. He's just a really solid tackle prospect. And you see him a lot mocked here to the Titans. I think, you got to get one of the two guys. I wrote down tackle in my notes. I think Fashanu is a top-tier pass protector at left tackle. He's got nimble feet, excellent length, and I think he's a plug-and-play starter on their offensive line, and that's what they need. They need a lot of help there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
If you're Brian Callahan, the new hire in Tennessee, coming over from the Bengals, you saw firsthand Joe Burrow come into that organization and get beat up. You realize the value of building a good offensive line. And you just need to get, like Will Levis showed that he can play. We don't know to what necessarily extent yet on a consistent basis, but if you can get him a good offensive line and some time to throw, you can open up that offense a little bit. And so, you're not going to have Derrick Henry anymore, supposedly. I think he's going elsewhere. He's already, bid his farewell to Tennessee. So I think it's going to be a change in style in this offense, and you got to have a good offensive line. The bad offensive lines in this league don't make it very far. Whether it's Alt or it's Fashanu, depending on how the board falls, I think you got to make the move.
Yeah, definitely. I think for them, you plug in what you don't fill in free agency. And to be honest, I would rather fill DB in free agency and go the tackle route in the draft because it's more valuable to have a good tackle locked down for 5 years on a rookie contract, in my opinion, than it is DB where you can find a surplus of those in free agency at a good price usually. I think you made the right move there for sure. I think it was DeJean or Olu, and Olu, I think, with how the draft board fell, I think was the right decision. Okay, now for the Falcons, I think this is where Jaden Daniel goes. They have a need at quarterback, obviously. They have a new coach brought in Raheem Morris, a defensive-minded guy. I'm not entirely sure who he went with at offensive coordinator, but regardless, I think that's the direction they need to go in with this pick. I think not Arthur Smith, Arthur Blank, their owner, has made clear that he wants a higher level of quarterback play, whether that's Justin Fields, whether that's, anyone in free agency or the draft. There's got to be a big move made for this new regime. So I think this is where they go. If the draft board falls this way, I think it works out perfectly. They're just going to take Jaden Daniels and not even have to trade up or anything.
I like it. And if you want to hear more about Arthur Smith, tune in tomorrow. Okay, so we're all the way to number 9. Back to the Bears again. Here I already kind of had it planned out. You could go DeJean if you want to. I know you're probably going to lose, Jalen Johnson in free agency. Possibly.
They're hoping to keep him, but
they're hoping to,
yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
So do you maybe go the corner route? Me personally, I'm going Rome Odunze. I value the wide receiver position in the NFL very highly. And I think Odunze, you pair him with what you already have in Chicago with why am I blanking? DJ Moore. It gives, I think, Caleb Williams more help, and it'll give him a big body playmaker, twitchy, athletic route runner, dominates at the catch point. We saw how good he was at Washington, almost 1,700 yards and 13 touchdowns, 92 catches, ultra productive college player. I think he's got a pro-ready frame, sure hands, catches the football. I think he's an excellent player. He scored 6 touchdowns on passes of 20-plus yards down the field. And what do we know about Caleb Williams? He likes to take risks, and you pair him with Rome Odunze, that could be a dangerous combo. With DJ Moore opposite Odunze, I think it works here. Chicago's head coach is
Eberflus,
Eberflus, right?
Yep.
So he'll take care of the defensive side of the ball. I think they just recently hired a new offensive coordinator. I don't know exactly who that is, but I think you go with Dunze.
Yeah, I agree. I think the speed, people forget that he was a track athlete all through high school. The speed is legitimate. It really puts pressure on corners, and he uses that to his full advantage with his route running ability. He understands route running, and he understands how to put pressure on corners. And I think with a presumably with a rookie quarterback in there, or even with Justin Fields, you want to continue to add weapons. And I think the offensive line is already pretty much set, other than maybe the center position. So wide receiver is really the last thing you need to add if you're Chicago at the offensive side of the ball. So I agree with that pick. Okay. Now for the Jets. They have I think, really urgent need at offensive tackle, in my opinion. Mekhi Becton, George Fant um, didn't really get the job done this year, to put it lightly. So for this pick, I'm going with Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State.
Like it.
Um, a lot of, you know, there's been a lot of talk about obviously Olu and Joe Alt, but I think Fuaga is kind of the forgotten guy of those three. I think in terms of his kick slide, he's maybe not as groin flexible as maybe Olu is in terms of pass protection, but it in terms of run blocking though, you're not going to get much better than Fuaga. I mean, on tape, it pops, man. Like if you look up just Fuaga highlight tape, you're going to see over and over again him pancaking dude after dude after dude. And in a Pac-12 conference that was full of good D linemen and good defenses. So I think he's really going to translate right away as a run blocker and be solid as a pass blocker right away. And I think his ceiling is very, very high.
Yeah, and people are raving about him right now in Mobile, Alabama, where the Senior Bowl practices are taking place. I've heard really good things about him. I haven't watched him much yet. I will before we get too much deeper into things, but I've heard really good things about him. I think that'd be a good pick for the Jets, and it definitely addresses one of their major needs for sure. For me at number 11 with Minnesota, you don't. If Jaden Daniels was here, I think that makes it easy, but he's not. I don't know about Bo Nix or any other quarterback at this particular moment in time at this spot, maybe, but I think you have other needs that you can address here with better players. I think with Daniil Hunter heading towards free agency, I think they're going to look to booster their defensive front here. That's what I would do if I were in this situation. And I'm going to go with Dallas Turner, the edge from Alabama. I think he fits really, really well in a Brian Flores defense. He's a souped up, flexible pass rusher who can be used to create havoc in Brian Flores' defense. I think Brian Flores would understand how he needs to be utilized. Uh, you know, complement of effective moves, high motor playmaker, disruptive against the pass and the run at Alabama. Just a really good player. Uh, Elite athleticism, short area quickness, bunch of pass rush talent. Um, he's got a high cut frame and long arms, which really helps in those pass rush situations. 6'4", 245. I think he makes your defense better from day one. I'm really high on Dallas Turner from Alabama. So I think that would be my pick here.
Yeah, that's exactly the move that I would have done. I think Dallas Turner, out of the guys we've picked so far, I think he's the guy that if you told me he jumped up and ended up getting picked, top 6, 7 by the time the draft process is done, I would not be surprised at all.
Right.
He's my edge one in this class as of right now. I think he has a bag of pass rush moves, first of all. And you pair that with his physical tools and his experience at Alabama. He improved year over year over year in terms of run defense and pass rushing. Um, he's a battle tested player. He had to face a lot of high end tackles in college in the SEC. So um, I think he's going to have an amazing NFL career. Let's just say that.
I agree. All right. The final pick of today's mock is the Denver Broncos.
Okay. Man, a lot of defense on the board right now. I think the best player available is Cooper DeJean. I think you can put him at corner, you put him at safety, it doesn't matter. You have Kareem Jackson, who's aging a little bit, and also if you watch the Broncos at all this year, he had the tendency to, get a few fines as well with his hitting. So just in case Kareem Jackson gets suspended, and with his impending retirement in a couple years' time, most likely, I think Cooper DeJean is someone you can grab and immediately throw into your defense in whatever hole you need. I think he's someone who will come in and earn his spot in camp. He's like a bigger version of Brian Branch from last year. You can put him at the slot, you can put him outside, you can put him at safety. It doesn't matter at all. He's a complete chess piece, basically.
Yeah, I like the pick. And that concludes our first mock draft. Now, obviously, we could keep going all day long if we really wanted to. But for now, that's going to kick off our draft season. How about that, guys? I think that went relatively well. We got it in and around exactly probably 30 minutes with our 3 to 4 minute intro. So I like it. Let's see what PFF says about our draft real fast. So there it is. Maybe we'll post that on our Twitter and our social media. The first 12 picks are the picks that we made, of course. So let us know if you agree, disagree with the picks that we made. If you're just a draft nerd like we are, or you like one of these teams, and let us know if you agree or disagree with the simulation afterwards. Who did the Steelers and Cowboys pick? Oh, yeah, I'm just curious.
Okay, the Steelers.
Ooh, Nate Wiggins. I like it. Looks like the Cowboys got
Jordan Morgan, a tackle. I actually like that also.
the
I
Packers.
would have loved to have gone with Byron Murphy, though. He went right after the Packers.
Yeah.
But okay.
We'll be talking about those Texas guys too. Don't worry. We're going to get to that in some way, shape, or form. Quick note, we're not having much Texas specific content tonight, but quick note on the Senior Bowl. Christian Jones and Byron Murphy are the two guys from Texas that are currently participating actively in Senior Bowl practices. Byron Murphy was invited, but he's setting out nursing something from the end of the season. He'll be okay. He's fine, but he's not going to risk re-aggravating something, or he's just not participating. Jordan Whittington's there, kind of the same issue. Jalen Ford's dealing with something too, just nagging injuries from the end of the season. Texas played longer than most teams did, but Christian Jones had a fantastic day yesterday at the Senior Bowl. Looked really good. I think he impressed a lot of scouts with his pass block one-on-one sets. And then T'Vondre Sweat today was just dominating people. I don't know if you guys saw the clips. Texas, if you haven't, you just need to go to Texas football Twitter, and they have it out there. He was putting guys on their ass.
Yeah.
And also showing off some quickness with his pass rush ability. So we'll be talking about the Texas guys at a later time. But some good updates out of the Senior Bowl from a Longhorn perspective. Okay. Anything you want to add to that before we transition?
Well, I think by the end of this, you could easily see 3 Texas players go in the first round. I really don't think that's a hot take. I think Murphy is a lock to go in the first round,
I
and
agree.
I think A.D. Mitchell and Devondre Sweat, I think, could go up and end up being late in the first round.
I agree. We are going to be doing a series of team episodes. We're going to start with our teams, the Steelers and Cowboys, and probably branch out to some other teams. And in those episodes, we're going to be doing some mini team mock drafts. So if you're dying for just more mock drafts, you'll get them, maybe sparsely, but you'll get them.
Yep.
So just wanted to let you guys know that. Okay. That's our draft stuff. Let's transition to what's a massive weekend in college basketball. And I'm just not saying that. There are 4 top 10 matchups this weekend, 4 matchups between top 10 teams playing in each of them. The first of which is going to be Houston and Kansas. Then we get Duke and North Carolina. They're both ranked in the top 10, and we always know how good those games are. Then we get Tennessee and Kentucky, arguably the 2 best teams in the SEC. And then on Sunday, to cap it all off, we get Purdue and Wisconsin, who are both ranked top 6 in the country. So it's going to be a really exciting weekend of college basketball. Look, I know I'm kind of an extremist when it comes to college basketball, but if there's one weekend that you should watch college basketball, there's no real excuse. There's no football on. I know the NBA is great lately, but if you're not going to tune into some of these games, I don't know what to tell you. You're just not. I don't want to hear it when March Madness comes around that you love college basketball. I just don't want to hear it. All right. So, where do you want to start? You want to go in chronological order, or is there a matchup that stands out to you?
Let's start with Wisconsin Purdue. I think that's going to be a really interesting one. I think Zach Edey and everything he brings to the table is obviously interesting, but Wisconsin, they've been a top offensive team from what I've seen. Really shooting the ball well, playing fast. But I'll let you start off. What do you think about that game?
Well, I think people are, from a national perspective, are really underrating Wisconsin. I'm not talking about the media; they have them ranked in the top 6 in the AP poll. But just from a college basketball fan perspective, I think people have their mindset on what they've seen from Wisconsin's teams past, and that's not what this Wisconsin team is. Right now, they're ranked 11th on KenPom. And when you look at, the games they have played, you can make an argument that they do not have a marquee, legitimate, standout victory. They beat down Virginia, who's a bubble team, on a neutral site. Actually, I take that back. They beat Marquette by 11 at home. But other than that, they did the thing I like about it. I'll start here. They challenged themselves in non-con. They went up against Tennessee, another top 5 team. They went up against Providence. They lost that game, but Providence is in the Big East. They could be a tournament team. And they lost to Arizona, another top 10, top 15 caliber team. And then they lost the road game in conference to Penn State, who was a tournament team last year. And that happens to everybody once you get into conference play. If you look at who they are as a team, This year, they are 5th in adjusted offensive efficiency. And a lot of that is due to what they brought in through the transfer portal. The two-man game of A.J. Storr and Steven Krell down low in the post as a 7-foot junior who can score around the basket, gives them rebounding and some shot blocking as well, has been fantastic. And when you look at it, what I like about it is they've got continuity from last year. 73% of their minutes from last year are coming back or are back. So they have some continuity. And they're 49th in D1 experience. 2.5 years on average of D1 experience on this team. And that matters come the tournament. I like their guard play. I like they have a dominant force down low. They're not quite as stingy defensively as past Wisconsin teams, but they're still a good defensive team. 40th in adjusted defensive efficiency on KenPom. What I do like about them is they are excellent on the defensive glass. So when they get stops, they don't allow second chance points, and that's huge, especially when you're going up against a lot of these teams that like to get on the boards and crash the offensive glass. Wisconsin does a very good job of rebounding and getting into their offensive sets. They're 7th in defensive rebound percentage. And you know, they force turnovers. They're 6th right now in steal percentage. And they're fairly efficient on the offensive end of the floor. They don't really, 54% effective field goal percentage. That's top quarter in the country. So I like Wisconsin. I don't know about their ceiling as, say, like a Final Four team. I think it would depend on the matchups. But I think they're definitely in the discussion to be a Sweet 16 for sure, possibly Elite 8 kind of team.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, you're out on the money there. I think with how good they are offensively, they check a lot of boxes in terms of a team that I think can be effective in the tournament. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to stops, of course, because you're going to face tough teams that present challenge defending you and defensively. But I think they have the team to do it. And you mentioned obviously AJ Storr and that 2-man game they have. That's, I think, when you have a bread and butter play like that, it really helps you in crunch time situations. Late in the second half, last 5 minutes of a game, a lot of, winning those tight games in conference games is execution late. And especially in March Madness, of course. But just dumbing it down as low as possible, it's just about execution. And I trust Wisconsin to execute at the highest level. I think they have a offense, they have the shot making, and they know what they're good at. They have an identity.
Yeah, AJ Storr coming over from St. John's as a sophomore this year, averaging about 16 points per game in 27 minutes. Really, really good. Shooting 45% from the field. He's been the driving force of this Wisconsin offense. And then to add to that, you have Steven Krell on the interior. And when they have him going and they're working that 2-man game, it's a really, really nice combination offensively. So as I said, I still want to see more of them before I go as far as to say that they are a Final Four caliber team. But they're absolutely a second weekend team in my eyes. As far as Purdue is concerned, I think my biggest concern with Purdue is, are they going to get in their own way in the tournament? That's been their problem the past couple of years. But I think as long as you can have Braden Smith and Zach Edey being consistent on the offensive end of the floor, I think it works. You're not going to be able to stop Edey. And when Braden Smith is going at his best, he's a top point guard in college basketball. So I think I do think this Purdue team is a little bit deeper than past Purdue teams. And I think they're more well suited from a guard play standpoint, as they were inexperienced last year, to kind of get through the first couple rounds. Because that's your concern with Purdue, is they just got to overcome whatever is ailing them in the first couple rounds of the tournament, where they've been knocked out early the past couple of years. And the expectations are high right now. The expectation for this Purdue team is to get to the Final Four at the very minimum, because they have the most dominant player in the sport. And so the key for Purdue, in my opinion, is guard play, and not just from a scoring standpoint. You cannot turn the ball over if you're Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. You need Fletcher Lawyer's three-point shot to be going at a decent percentage, and you need Braden Smith to be the point general of this offense. As long as those things are working, I believe in Purdue. I think they are absolutely a Final Four caliber team. And I'm interested to watch Sunday's matchup, because you get Zach Edey going up against Stephen Crowell, and then AJ Storr up against Braden Smith. I think those are two fantastic matchups.
Yeah, I agree. Who you got in this game? Who you picking?
Where's the game? I know there's a game going on. I haven't looked exactly where it is.
I think it's in Wisconsin. I'm not sure. Let me
I
see.
think you're probably right about that, actually. You're right. It's at Wisconsin. This game, by the way, it's going to be noon on CBS on Sunday afternoon. This will be a huge win for Wisconsin. Right now, according to the odds, if I can find them, I can't find them, but I just have a feeling Wisconsin's going to win this game. Just no real rhyme or reason to it. I think they have a really good shot to win the Big Ten regular season, especially if they can win this game. And I think playing at home, they'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Wisconsin as well in a close one.
The thing is, though, Wisconsin has they're going on the road tomorrow night to play Nebraska. Nebraska this year is a tough place to play. They're 15-6, and when Purdue came into their building a couple of weeks ago, Purdue can tell you how that went. Didn't go well. So if you're Wisconsin, it'll be interesting to see how they come off of that. We'll have to see how that game goes tomorrow, but do they get a real emotional victory on the road in Nebraska and then have to come back home and face Purdue? It's just I'm interested in schedule dynamics and how that works out in college basketball. But we got to move on. Okay. The thumbnail, you guys saw the thumbnail, or you will see the thumbnail when you click on this video. And we got to talk about the headliner, and that is Duke Carolina. That's what it is. These two teams are in the top 10, and this rivalry is Duke Carolina basketball, in my opinion, aside from maybe you can argue Ohio State, Michigan in football. You can make a couple other arguments, but I think Duke Carolina, if it's not first, it's second in terms of rivalries in college sports, period. It's always a fantastic game. In fact, I have a stat here. If you need any other thing to tell you what the Duke Carolina basketball rivalry is, this would be it. Saturday will be the 49th time in the history of this rivalry that Duke and North Carolina will have met, both ranked in the AP top 10. It's happened 49 times. That is 35 more than any other matchup. And in the previous 48 times that this has happened, UNC has won 24 times. Duke has won 24 times. It's an even split. And the average score, get this, 76.8 to 76.2.
Wow.
So this game will be taking place in Chapel Hill. But that just goes to show you, like, it's always a great game. I always look forward to this game every year. Here's the bottom line now. For North Carolina, I'm really high on North Carolina. I've watched them a bunch. And the main reason is, number one, RJ Davis. RJ Davis is going to be an All-American. He's averaging nearly 5 more points per game than he did last season. He's scored 20 or more points in 14 of their first 21 games, playing at an All-American level. He is the straw that stirs the proverbial drink in Chapel Hill right now. You can make an argument. There are other arguments out there. I mean, Tristan Newton at UConn. You can make an argument for Tyler Kolek at Marquette. But I think RJ Davis, so far this year, having Carolina at 9-1 in conference play in the ACC, doing what he's doing in the efficient way that he's doing it, might be a first-team All-American. So you have the guard play. That's figured out. But the big reason why I believe in this Carolina team is because of their defense. They still play at a pretty fast pace, but they're bought in on the defensive end. And I think another underrated thing here is Armando Bacot has really stepped into a more team-oriented role, if that makes sense. He's not going for, 18 and 12 every night. He's not glorifying you with statistics. Like, if Armando Bacot wanted to, he could probably go for 20 and 10 pretty easily against most of these ACC teams, but he's not. He's bought in on the defensive end of the floor. He's doing what Armando Bacot does best, getting on the glass and rebounding. He's the all-time leading rebounder at the University of North Carolina. Like, he's a great rebounder. And, he'll get his. He gets on the offensive glass. He'll get his. He'll maybe make a couple post moves now and then and score down low. He's capable of doing that. But he's kind of taken a step back from an offensive standpoint and really asserted himself in other areas that Carolina needs it. And I absolutely love the transfers they brought in. Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan. Both can give you floor spacing from a three-point shooting standpoint and perimeter defense. And I think the construction of this team is much, much better than Carolina teams past, where you had a bunch of cooks in the kitchen in the backcourt that weren't playing efficient basketball. It was either Armando Bacot, go get yours, or Caleb Love, go get yours. Be a hero. And that's, they've cut some of the fat, and I think Hubert Davis has done an incredible job with this current version of Carolina team. And the reason I say that is because 2 years ago, they went to the Final Four. And believe it or not, they actually matched up with Duke, and that was Coach K's last game. We all remember that. But in that season, they really only had 1.5 great months. Like, they were decent for most of the season. But it really came down to February and March where they really turned on the afterburners. And last year, they came in with high expectations, had a lot returning, pretty much the entire team for that matter, and they fell flat on their face. It just didn't work. The Caleb Love thing, as we know, didn't work. That's why he's in a new place now. That fits better for him. And they remade this roster a little bit through the transfer portal. And they obviously have, as always, some talented freshmen. Elliot Cadeau is a very nice complement to RJ Davis. He's kind of more of a playmaker for this offense. He hasn't really come into his own yet as a scorer, but they don't need that. They need someone who can play make and is good on the defensive end. And that's what Elliot Cadeau is as a freshman. He can score, but that's not what he's being asked to do in his role. That's for RJ Davis, who I think is an All-American. And I think if you would have told Elliot Cadeau that he'd be playing next to or alongside possibly a first-team All-American guard in his first year at Carolina to take some of the pressure off him, I think he would have taken that. So I love this Carolina team. Look, they just lost last night to Georgia Tech, but honestly, and I'm not going to make excuses for Carolina. It's like, you lost to Georgia Tech. It's not a great loss. Doesn't look great on your resume. Georgia Tech's they're kind of a program in transition right now, but this might interest some NBA fans. They do have DeMond Stoudemire as their new head coach at Georgia Tech, and I believe with the fertile recruiting ground that's in Atlanta, he'll be able to get some players there, and I think he'll do a good job with that program. They also played a really close game with Duke earlier this year. I think, and I'm not making excuses for Carolina, I think you could chalk that a little bit up to,
Trap game,
maybe looking a little bit ahead to this Saturday, one of the biggest games of your season. And, it still took a immaculate shot at the end of that game for Georgia Tech to win. And Carolina didn't play its best ball. Now, RJ Davis was pretty much the reason they were in that game, believe it or not. But I think Carolina will come out in this game. Duke's been playing really well. They got a massive victory a couple days ago against Virginia Tech on the road. Really like the way that their freshman, Jared McCain, has been playing. I think Tyrese Proctor is back to his old self. He had an injury. Didn't look like the Tyrese Proctor we saw last year at the beginning of the season. Duke struggled a little bit. He's back to being that guy. They have Mark Williams back, and Kyle Filipowski is going to be an All-American. So I think this is a fantastic game. I think it has the potential to be the best game that we have this college basketball regular season because Carolina Duke always delivers. But I'm going to take Carolina to win on their home floor.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Carolina as well. I really enjoy how they move the ball around. In particular, they really swing it. They get the defense in rotation. They understand how to get the defense in rotation, and they take advantage. When they get those advantage situations, they are good decision makers. They have a willingness to throw it down to Armando Bacot when he has a matchup. They have a willingness to make the extra pass, makes the extra swing pass to get the offense going. Like that, those little things I think are signs that this team is really taking the coaching well, and that Hubert Davis is really settling in as a coach. He's done a fantastic job, as you mentioned. So I'm taking North Carolina. I think they're legit contenders this year. Obviously, that goes without saying with how their record is. But this game, it always means a lot, but it means even more this year because of how, because of where the ACC is right now. This is a game that means a ton because you need those marquee victories.
Yeah. You look at Carolina, they are a team that fits perfectly into the mold of a profile that screams national champion in college basketball. They are top 20 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. They're 18th in offense and they're 4th in defense. 4th in defensive efficiency at North Carolina is not something that we've seen in past years. We know the offense will be there with the running gun system that they typically run, but they are really, really good, if not elite, on both ends of the floor. And I think they're in my bubble of teams that can get into the tournament and win 6 straight games. That's what you have to do to win the national championship. Um, there are not a lot of guards in college basketball that are going to be able to stop RJ Davis at the level that he's playing at right now. You have an elite presence down low, a guy that can get you rebounds on both ends, clean up on the glass, and he's bought in defensively. I think the question you would have with Armando Bacot is sometimes he tends to get a little banged up and availability can be an issue, but I mean, he's stayed relatively healthy. As long as his team's healthy, they could be the national champions. I mean, it's really not that far-fetched. Okay, let's talk about Houston and Kansas. Let's go to the Big 12. Let's talk about this a little bit. Obviously, Texas lost a hard-fought game on Monday night at home to Houston. We can talk about that game maybe to close out the show. But your thoughts on Houston and Kansas and where these teams really stack up right now in the national championship picture?
Well, I think this matchup, it means a lot. Like this has the opportunity to be a rivalry for years to come. In my opinion, I think Houston, the program they've built, the scrappy defense, the really good guard play that they've had, and then Kansas on the other side, how they play fast, get out and run. I think it's a kind of a clashing of styles there. And I think there's going to be a little bit of feeling each other out for a lot of the first half, and then the offenses will show themselves in the second half and things will pick up. I think Houston has the personnel to be able to defend Kansas in the half court, but that's the thing, though. They have to keep Kansas in the half court. Kansas thrives in transition with all of those athletic wings that they have. And I think Houston has the ability to rebound at a high enough level to keep them out and the discipline to get back in transition and keep on those matchups. So I think I would probably give Kansas or Houston the slight edge if they were at home. But since it's in Kansas and how good Kansas has been at home, I think I would probably lean Kansas in this game.
Houston has proved that their defensive dominance was not just a pure product of playing in the American Conference.
Yep.
And they've passed that test with flying colors. They're quite possibly the best defensive team I've ever seen at a college basketball level. And I've been a fan of some really damn good defensive teams.
Yeah.
The University of Virginia. I've watched a lot of college basketball over the years. This Houston team is maybe as good as any of them, if not better. And when you look at the makeup of this team, Jamal Shead basically won them the game on Monday night in Austin, put up a game-high 25 points, and he's a elite guard that can really bother you on the defensive end of the floor. You pair him with the shooting ability and microwave scoring ability of LJ Cryer, the transfer from Baylor. You get Emmanuel Sharp, his touches, and you all of a sudden have a three-headed monster at the guard position. You get the shooting with Emmanuel Sharp and LJ Cryer. You get the shot creation and the offensive punch, floor general ability from Jamal Shead. And then on the interior, you got a dominant force in Jawan Roberts, who's just a physical. He's a man amongst boys most of these games. Gets on the offensive and defensive glass. Really a glue guy to this team. Physical on defense. Hard to score against in the low post. And then you bring in a guy like, Javier Francis off the bench, who's 6'8" and pretty much does the same things. This Houston team is really, really tough to score against and to beat. I think they are firmly in my national championship bubble with teams like North Carolina because defense travels. Defense travels in the NCAA tournament, and I think they maybe have the best defense that we've seen in this decade of college basketball at the very least. As far as Kansas is concerned, I think they're firmly in the Final Four discussion. I'm a little skeptical of their ability to win 6 straight games, but it is Bill Self. And the emergence of Johnny Furphy, the freshman, from an offensive standpoint, since he's been inserted into the starting lineup, has been a welcoming sight for Kansas. Because we all know Kevin McCullough, he's going to be an All-American most likely. We all know about Hunter Dickinson. He's going to be an All-American. And I think DeJuan Harris will certainly be, at the very least, an all Big 12 caliber point guard. He's one of the better point guards we have in the Big 12. Just from a floor general standpoint and a defensive standpoint. He's excellent on the defensive end. But they needed more elsewhere. Their top 4 is great, but they needed more elsewhere. And the emergence of a freshman like Johnny Furphy, who can stretch the floor and shoot the 3 and has athleticism to, put the ball in the, on the dribble and get to the basket, score a little bit. You don't need, with guys like Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough, you don't need, 12, 15 points a night from a guy like Johnny Furphy. But if you get that, it makes you even more dangerous. And so I think Kansas is right there. I want to see how they handle the ball pressure and the traps that Houston is going to present, and the physicality that Houston is going to present. Surprisingly, Kansas at 5-3 in this Big 12, which is not bad whatsoever. It's actually good. I believe it's Bill Self's worst 8-game start in conference play in the Big 12, which is just ridiculous to think about. I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's going to be close. It's just so hard to win at Fog Allen.
Yeah.
These teams play twice. I think Kansas gets this one in a close one at home just because Houston's coming off a hard-fought emotional road victory at Texas where they were pushed to overtime, had to play 5 extra minutes. And Kansas is coming off a dominant win over Oklahoma State last night. I think Kansas will be up for this game, and I think they'll get the job done. But I do think Houston, in the last game of the regular season, will get them back when they play at Houston.
So Kansas only gets a day of rest?
No, they played last night, so they get today, tomorrow.
Oh shoot!
Friday.
It's only Wednesday. I'm tripping. Oh my gosh.
Houston does get 1 extra day of rest though, so that's
I'm tripping. My bad.
Yeah, I'm so excited to watch that game. That's going to be the first of these top 10 matchups that goes on. So you could actually, if you really wanted to, you could watch some of the Senior Bowl, which I believe starts at noon, maybe 1. You could watch Texas TCU at 1 o'clock, and then you could flip to Houston, Kansas. And after that, you could flip to Carolina, Duke. Then after that, you could flip to Tennessee, Kentucky. Like, it's just a perfect setup.
Yeah.
Okay. To close out the show, let's talk a little bit about the SEC. I think it's the second best conference in college basketball, right behind the Big 12. And Tennessee is going to play Kentucky on the road in one of the bigger games of the SEC schedule. The big thing here, I think, is Tennessee and Dalton Connect, who's putting up close to 29 points per game in SEC play.
Wow.
I think he's been the best transfer in college basketball. And I think he's been arguably the second best player in all of college basketball. Just what he's given this Tennessee team from an offensive standpoint. He had another huge game on Saturday where he finished with 32 points in a road win at Vanderbilt. In conference road games, he's averaging 31.4 points. He's scored 25 plus in 5 straight SEC games. And he's taking 36% of their shots when he's on the floor in conference. These stats all coming via The Athletic. He has the highest offensive rating of any player in SEC play as well. He's been the guy for Tennessee. The key for Tennessee is Zakai Ziegler playing at his best, and do they get anything from Josiah Jordan James? Can they get anything from gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. It'll come to me. Can they get their role players to perform at a consistent level on the offensive end? From a Kentucky standpoint, it's about they're playing at home. They've got potentially the most upside of anyone in college basketball. Their offense is great. Their defense is That's always an issue with freshman-laden teams. The question for me in this game is how good does Kentucky rebound on both ends? They have Trey Mitchell. They have the size to do it, but it hasn't all come together yet for Kentucky, especially from a defensive rebounding perspective. And so I think for me, particularly in this game, even though the game's at Kentucky, I think Tennessee's experience and their ability to play physical on that end with some of these freshman guards and their ability to play, dictate the pace with the way Dalton Connect is performing, I think Tennessee will bounce back and win this one, as they just lost a home game to South Carolina, who's legit, surprisingly. So I think Tennessee bounces back and gets a huge road win, which they need.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you hit it on the head with the physicality part of things. I think when it comes to those paint battles, those rebounding battles, those little micro, tug of wars within the game, I think Tennessee is going to have the edge there in all of those. In terms of the details, the little things, you freshmen, you acknowledged how freshman laden Kentucky is. I mean, Tennessee, they're veteran across the board. I think we could see Dalton Connect have another big game here. I think the rebounding battle, is going to fall in Tennessee's favor. I think the 50-50 balls, just like I said, the little details. I think Tennessee has the edge in all of those facets. And if it does go the other way, it'll be because I think Kentucky, they have like you said, the upside, and it'll be because they shot Tennessee out of the gym.
Yes.
And which that's how Tennessee loses when they lose. It's because the team they played against got hot from three. That's really how they lose every single time they lose.
Yeah, Reed Shepherd for Kentucky leads the country in 3-point percentage, 55% from three. It's ridiculous. Uh,
On high
you know,
attempts too.
Shepherd would finish with the highest 3-point percentage since the line was moved back uh, in 2019-2020. His 3-point percentage would also rank 14th best for a single season in NCAA history and the best a freshman has ever shot. Um, that's it's yeah. So I do agree
What's
with
the
you.
best ever? I wonder. I mean, 55% from three is ridiculous. I
Yeah,
mean,
that if Kentucky's able to speed this game up and get those open shots, and they're making their open shots, and they're able to kind of do what they want offensively, they might run Tennessee out of the gym. I think there's probably a better chance that Kentucky ends up blowing Tennessee out than there is that Tennessee blows Kentucky out. But just because I think in those lower possession games, the way Tennessee likes to play, it's harder to separate yourself, especially from a team that still has a ton of playmakers and shot creators like Kentucky does, and they're playing at home. I just think in this particular matchup, Tennessee's going to bounce back from the loss that they took to South Carolina, and I think they're going to come ready to play and impose their physicality on this Kentucky team. And this will be good learning for this Kentucky team. These are the things that I think this Kentucky team needs to experience now rather than, when they get to the round of 64 in the NCAA tournament.
right.
Okay. Well, those 4 games, I'm so excited to watch those, but there are other games going on too. There's TCU in Texas, there's Baylor and Iowa State.
Yep.
I believe UConn's playing at the Garden. The number 1 team in the country is playing at the Garden against St. John's with Rick Pitino. That's obviously a big storyline.
Yeah.
Marquette is playing someone. I forget.
I think they're playing
Yeah, they're
Providence.
playing
I'm not sure.
Providence. And we saw last weekend how um, Ed Cooley in Georgetown returned to Providence. That was a big. I don't think it quite lived up to when Chris Beard went back to Lubbock. I mean, Providence fans weren't trying to throw shit at the team bus or anything, or try to flip
Yeah.
the bus or whatever they were trying to do to in Lubbock when Chris Beard came back. But they were fired up, and it was a great environment. Obviously, Georgetown is a program in transition right now, and Providence, I think, will make the NCAA tournament. Some of the wins that they and their opportunities, in the Big East. If I had to rank the conferences right now, I would go Big 12 1A, SEC 1B, and then Big East number 2. And then probably
Big Ten.
probably Big 10, and then probably ACC. Pac-12 is probably a 1 or 2 bid league this year. It's not very good. UCLA didn't really pan out like people thought. Oregon's pretty good. Colorado's pretty good. But there are no real threats out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Arizona's the one threat, I think, in the Pac-12. If you really want to be real, a team from the Pac-12 that can actually get to the Final Four, it would be Arizona, in my opinion. But we've seen them struggle in the tournament the past couple of years. So lots of college basketball content. You have any parting shots for today's episode? It can be about anything. Just
Well, that Texas Houston game, that was tough to watch late there. We took them to the brink, and oh man, I'm just couldn't come out on top. And then the other thing was the PGA Tour news came out today with the PGA Tour Enterprises thing. We'll get to that, I'm sure, in a few weeks when we cover shoot, some of the Florida swing tournaments, but yeah, that was interesting to see. I thought at first that it was the Live Golf merger news, but it wasn't. I thought like it completely threw me for a loop.
Yeah. You got golf content coming soon, but for right now, you're going to want to stay tuned to this channel because we're going to have, as I mentioned earlier, team content coming up from an NFL standpoint. We'll start with a Pittsburgh Steelers centric episode tomorrow night. And then we'll move to Dallas probably sometime next week. We'll also have our Super Bowl episode, always really fun. And then we'll obviously have another dit hole sometime mixed in within there. So Emmy and I got to talk about some stuff. But sooner rather than later, we're going to be starting the afters. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but I'm calling it the afters, where after we conclude our stream, we'll go live again for 20 or 30 minutes and just talk shop, basically. I don't know when we're going to do that or how we're going to do it yet, but that's something to look out for as well.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the college basketball this weekend, and we'll see you next time on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em. Peace out.